Harvey hitting southeast Texas with a 1-2 punch. We don't have to tell you that. The winds dying down, but now the storm just sitting over the region, dropping torrential rains, bringing catastrophic floods. Homeland Security Advisor Tom Bossert discussing the danger on Face the Nation.
Let's not lose our focus on how bad this still is. Some news coverage outlets, not yours, are reporting that this is being downgraded and it's less of an event. It's just a storm now. That's a mistake. We're going to see continued rain, upwards of 30 inches. I don't think people understand what 30 inches of rain. I don't understand. I've been around dozens and dozens of major disasters and hurricanes, hundreds of disasters. I've never seen 30 inches of rain. So what we're going to do is pay attention to this, watch the inland flooding unfold.
Someone who may agree. Dr. Marshall Shepard is a director of the University of Georgia Atmospheric Sciences Program and former president of the American Meteorological Society. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. I assume you would agree with that statement.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. And what's even scarier about that is we're probably talking more than 30 inches now. We're talking about 4 feet, perhaps, maybe even more. I mean, I just read that about 9 trillion gallons of water have already fallen on the area. That would fill Great Salt Lake twice.
So the narrative to say that the storm is weakening would be dangerous. And I want to put up a graphic for some of our viewers. It sort of shows the concentration of precipitation, and it's not going away anytime soon. It looks like we could be seeing rain up until Wednesday for these folks.
Yeah, and perhaps even beyond. You know, as meteorologists, we've known this for about a week or so. We have warned about the notion that Harvey was just going to stall out and that the inland flooding was going to be the story. And I think it could end up being the most disastrous flood event in U.S. history. But I was worried because as we started seeing coverage of the Cat 4 hurricane making landfall, I was immediately concerned that the focus was going to shift there, rightfully so, because that is a tragic event also. But we were always worried about this notion of 2, 3, 4 feet of rain falling in this region. And unfortunately, it's playing out.
And when you talk about the dangers of this particular part of the country, just when we talk about geography-wise, you're concerned about the inland flooding because the storm is stalling out. Obviously, all the water is going to try to flow south, flow toward the Gulf. That being said, once the ground is saturated and these rivers are at capacity, what happens with all this water and what does it do to the infrastructure?
Well, that's right. When we see flooding is not always a function of what falls from the sky. It's also the impervious surfaces, how full the soil is from soil moisture, how we are effectively removing water from a stormwater management and engineering standpoint. And now we're seeing saturated soils in this region. The rivers are responding in terms of the basic water cycle that we all learned about in elementary school. And so this water simply has nowhere to go, and it's still raining, and it's going to rain. This is an important point to get across. We could be talking about rain in this region through Wednesday, perhaps even through next week. So it doesn't have a chance. That natural water cycle does not have a chance to recover. So I have long been worried about this since earlier in the week, and unfortunately it's bearing out. So we're offering our thoughts and prayers to everyone there.
My last question, Dr. Shepard, then where do we go from here? I've heard a lot of critics say, well, there should have been a federal response for a barrier system in place because Houston sits so low, it's in a bayou. But could that have been prevented? This have been prevented? I mean, the numbers that we're seeing, no one can match.
Yeah, this is an unprecedented event. That region certainly gets flooding, and I've seen people say, oh, we're used to this in Houston, we'll survive. No, you haven't seen anything like that. This is an unprecedented event. Certainly, there's discussion about evacuations, but I want to remind people that more people die in flooding from being in their cars. And so it's not as simple as we think to just talk about, oh, everyone should have gotten out. So let's just listen to our officials. We are going to see more flood events like this going forward in the future as we see changes in our environment and climate. So this is what we have to deal with. So we need to think about planning for the future.
Right. Dr. Shepard, thank you so much for joining us. A really interesting perspective. Thank you.